Have been charged in the murder of 71-year-old grandmother. Police say they found human remains in a trash bags in the basement and a chainsaw. They both appeared in a Prince George's County courtroom this afternoon at 1:15 p.m. Eastern. Of course, following this very closely here on Live Now from Fox, as authorities say a mother and her daughter have been charged in connection with murdering the family's grandmother. Police have charged 44-year-old Candace Craig with first and second degree murder. Her 19-year-old daughter is also charged with accessory after the fact. Let's take you out to some remarks here, live, raw, and unfiltered on Live Now from Fox.
Yeah, what can you say as far as what happened at the hearing today? No bond status. I missed part of it. Was it said that all of the victim and the two defendants lived all together?
So the victim and we believe that the victim and the two defendants were all connected to the house in some way. Obviously, they were all related. And today, the two defendants were held without bond in this case.
And do we know how she actually died at this point?
At this point, that is still under investigation. The ME is involved, and hopefully we'll have a cause of death shortly.
Is that something that can be determined with a body that mutilated, or is that
with the extent of the injuries, with the dismemberment, it is going to be very difficult. I think that the ME's office will do their best to give us a cause and manner of death. But in this case, which is unlike any case I have ever seen or experienced here in the county, to say it's disturbing is an understatement. It's horrifying. The allegations contained in the statement of charges is just heartbreaking. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that this is Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and it's important, I think, to note in this case that someone related to our victim was concerned enough about her whereabouts that they reached out to do a welfare check. And the Prince George's County Police Department is a wonderful resource, as well as all of our municipal departments. They do these welfare checks because of someone caring enough to reach out, because our department was doing its job. We uncovered a horrific crime. And so our job now is to ensure that our victim gets justice, and that is what we're going to do. Jess Garth, who's the chief of our Special Victims and Family Violence Unit, I'm going to ask her to come up and talk a little bit about, some of the facts as we provided in court today for those of you who weren't there. So, Jess?
The government is robbing you, and you're honestly dumb if you haven't caught on.
Good afternoon. As the state's attorney said, somebody did come forward and contacted the police department and asked the police to do a welfare check. At the time that the officer arrived at the home, they were allowed to enter the home by one of the residents. In the basement, they uncovered the putrefying remains of the decedent in this case. They locked down the scene, they went and got a search warrant, and what they uncovered was, as the state's attorney said, one of the most disturbing crimes I think that this county has seen. At least, in recent times. It looks like there was some sort of a disagreement between Ms. Craig and her mother, the decedent. Sounds like at that time she opted to take the life of her mother. And then after that, she and her daughter dismembered the body, we believe using a chainsaw, and then attempted to dispose of the parts of the body using fire on a grill and in a bonfire, according to the investigation so far. This is a case that's still under investigation. We do anticipate that we'll have additional facts that we develop along the way. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Is there any guess as to how long she may have been died before the police were called?
I don't know. There is some indication that the fire department was called out on May 27th to investigate one of the fires that was being used to dispose of the body parts. But further than that, I can't say.
So at least almost like a week, I guess. And
Yes.
Ben, I mean, obviously, we've kind of gotten to recognize you a little bit because you've been involved with some pretty gruesome cases.
Unfortunately, so.
Yeah, some pretty unfortunate stuff. And up there, you kind of talked about how this is one of the worst that you've ever seen. Can
Yes.
you just add a little more context out here?
Sure. Well, I talk a lot about domestic violence, and often it's in the context of intimate partner violence, but family violence is, just as much a part of domestic violence. And in many ways, we're talking about people who, they are supposed to be protecting one another, caring for one another. When you're talking about your elderly parents as they get older, it's our duty as children to protect our parents. And certainly our duty to not murder them and then to dispose of them in such a gruesome way. When I think about this case, I think about how hard it is to actually dismember a human body. I mean, some people have difficulty, even cooking food, dealing with things like raw chicken. And when you're thinking about a body and then burning it, it just, it's very hard for me to think about, especially when you're talking about somebody who gave birth to you, who raised you. So yeah.
Is it safe to say you may never know how exactly she was killed?
As the state's attorney said, our medical examiner's office is going to do everything that they can do. It is possible that some of the evidence was destroyed, that we may need to determine the exact, way that she was taken from us. But I think it's safe to say that this case will be ruled a homicide.
Any update on the knife that was on the floor and then was missing when the police went back?
I don't have any particular details. I do know a search warrant was executed. They collected many, many different tools, and they'll be tested for DNA and for blood as well.
And we heard from Jess in court, but Madam State's Attorney, is this the most gruesome murder that you've seen in your time?
I mean, absolutely. On so many different levels. The fact that this was a mother, I don't believe I've had a case where a mother was killed by a daughter. And I certainly don't believe I've ever seen a case where a mother was not only killed by her daughter, but dismembered by her daughter and her granddaughter. So just the thought of people who are in your lineage, people who are supposed to be carrying on your legacy, being a part of your demise is almost unbelievable. And then not only but the death, but the dismemberment of the body being found in multiple bags, decaying in a home. I'm at a loss.
Were these
Slightly different subject.
Can I just ask one more? Were these like trash bags, gym bags, like?
The information I have is that they were plastic bags, but I don't know the size at this time.
Some sort of trash bag type thing?
I would imagine.
Okay.
And was this home the grandmother's home?
Yes.
Baby K. Been asked to dig on it a little more.
Yeah,
I learned that
sure.
he was on probation potentially at the time of the alleged attack on the bus and the thing in the district. Not registered in any school anywhere. It's also been determined. Should DJS have been supervising this child? If a child is on probation, should someone have been making sure he was kind of in school and living life?
Because...
Is there a failure with DJS?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I think it's fair to say I've had a number of conversations with DJS, and as late as Friday I've been in contact with the new Secretary of Juvenile Services. I think that DJS is, in many cases, overwhelmed just like other agencies, especially public safety agencies. But we all have to do better because our young people have to be in school. Those who are on probation actually have to be supervised. And if they are supposed to be participating in programs, then they have to be accountable for participating in those programs. I think that there's a lot of work to be done at DJS. I think and I've spoken to the governor personally about it, and he's committed to looking at resources that we need to add to our Department of Juvenile Services to ensure that the services that they do provide are actually meaningful to the people who they serve. A lot of the services are really controlled at the state level, but those of us on the ground know what our kids need, and if we could get more of those resources locally, I think we can make a better impact and have programs that will better meet the needs of our young people. But we have to hold them accountable. Oftentimes, what I hear is that DJS has done all that they could do for a child. Whether or not that child is successful in completing the program offered by DJS, then they will just discharge them, partially because of the new laws and the limitations on the amount of time that a child can be under the supervision of the Department of Juvenile Services. So I think in many ways, everyone has, I don't want to say failed, but everyone has probably gotten it wrong a little bit. So our state legislature, we're asking them to rethink and relook at some of the laws, especially the laws that speak to punishment or sanctions that a child can experience. Certainly rehabilitation is the goal of the juvenile justice system, and so we don't want to over-incarcerate kids, but some of our kids need more supervision, more structure, and some of them need to be confined for a period of time, and they actually have to show improvement. They just can't be discharged because the program timing has run out. You know, that's just not fair to the child. It's not fair to the community either. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, and DJS, I believe the new secretary knows that he has a lot of changes to make. So thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
You're just listening into this press conference there out of Prince George's County. Certainly a disturbing, a horrifying story that was their quote there of this, as the mother and daughter charged with murder in the death of their grandparents. I want to put up the mugshots one more time here on Live Now from Fox and give you a little bit more detail on what we know from this. Of course, they were held there without bond as the 44-year-old Candace Craig with first degree, and her daughter also, Celia Hardy, charged with accessory after the fact. As authorities say, a mother and daughter have been charged in connection with murdering the family's grandmother inside their home. Officials, they believe Craig murdered the mother, Margaret Craig, on the 23rd of May inside their home in Landover, Maryland. Investigators say the following day, her daughter helped her mother attempt to dispose of the remains. Certainly very disgusting, horrifying details there. Officers were called to the home on the afternoon of June the 2nd for a welfare check on the grandmother and were allowed to search inside. Homicide and evidence units were notified and assumed the investigation after officers smelled the odor of decomposition. So certainly a very disturbing story there out of Maryland, as the mom and daughter there charged in murder of that grandmother.